Okay. Welcome, Rahul, to this amazing new debriefing session. Congratulations on scoring a 730.
Thank you so much, DJ. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think the pleasure is all mine because I've seen you right from the point where you scored a 510 on your mock to the 730 just about a week back. It's been a phenomenal journey, and I think there's very few students that I would have really mentored over a very long period of time, and you're probably one of them. And I've pretty much seen you through and through all stages. And yeah, 510 to 730, Q30 to Q49, and V31 to V41. Fantastic and phenomenal. Take me through your journey now.
Sure. Firstly, I must thank you for helping me out through this entire journey, right? That is what it is. It's a journey because it's been close to 8 months since we started, and here we are. So to start off, I started my GMAT preparation sometime in June, July last year. And when I was preparing for my GMAT, I realized that when people said you'd probably take 3 months or so to complete GMAT, I knew that that was not true, at least for me, because to just give you a context, I am an above average student. I scored like 80 to 90% in my boards, 10th and 12th. But I was never a high-end achiever in terms of, okay, topping the school or the board, so on and so forth, right? So I knew I wasn't an outlier. But what I was sure was if I stick to the game for a really long time, then perhaps I will get where I wanted.
Makes sense.
So that's when I started in June, July, and I subscribed to one of the products, not e-GMAT, some other company, test prep company, and that was going smooth. I really liked their Quant because it was just lessons that I had to go through and then solve problems. The challenge that hit me was when it came to verbal, because that particular test prep company did not use say a structure to solve questions in verbal, right? And I'll perhaps touch upon that when we talk about e-GMAT, how that becomes very important. So in that sense, when they use jargons in English, for instance, say participial phrases or stuff like that, it threw me off because I just did not know what those meant. And I think that's when I decided that I'd have to probably shift to some other test prep company. And when I read reviews, e-GMAT was hands down best reviewed on the GMAT club forum, right? So I had enough of reason to believe that this may probably help me. So hence I got in touch with, hence I subscribed to the e-GMAT product. And I did not know how to use the product. I think there is a specific way in which you use the e-GMAT product, right? Which coincidentally, I got to know the day before my first attempt at GMAT. So I ended up with I think a 650 then on my actual GMAT. But then I realized that I did not do justice to verbal, and Quant was just all around the place. Yeah. And thankfully, because I was part of that video, which told me that, hey, you can get in touch with the support team at e-GMAT. I quickly wrote down and you responded, and yeah, that's how the journey started.
Yeah, it's been a long time since then, and I'm going to take you back to a very interesting email. And your email ID is rahul.rambo.royston, and my first question to you was why? Why is I mean, that's not your name, so let's clarify that first.
Yeah, so my name is Siddharth, but I go with my pen name, Rahul Rambo Royston. The reason was simple. I think when I started off, I knew that I would get a lot of promotional emails, especially with respect to GMAT and say my entire B school application. So I thought, why not just have like another email ID? So then the question was, what name do I choose? Similar to Amar Akbar Anthony, I probably chose Rahul Rambo Royston. Yeah, so that's the story behind the name.
Got it. And I remember I asked you this, and of course we started our discussion there on out. What are the things that you need to do to fix your prep? And I think the interesting thing about your journey is that it's been a mentorship experience, but just through simple support. So you wrote to me, I always responded in the same time period, duration. We didn't have a multiple series of calls, nothing. In fact, we, in this entire 7 or 8 month period, we probably have just spoken once. And that too was right towards the end of your prep, where I said that, this is what we really need to focus on. So again, take me through from the first time you wrote to what are the things we did after that and how did your journey progress?
Sure. So when I got to know about the e-GMAT support stuff, I quickly wrote an email to the team, not particularly to you, but addressing it to the
Yeah.
team, right? And that's when they put me in touch with you. Now, here's where it got a little interesting for me, right? Because I am writing an email for support, but I am not paying you. So I do not see any incentive in terms of how, why you or anyone else part of the team should be helping me. But one thing that I was certain was if you were going to respond, I will honor that code, which is
Yeah.
if you tell me to do something, I will do it. Because I thought building that trust was very important. And at no point in time would I break that trust that I was going to build with you. Simply because, I mean, if you say, hey, you know what, you've not been responding, I would have taken that argument because I'm not paying you. There's no incentive per se.
Yeah.
So I was very sure about that. But what really surprised me and what I'm really thankful for is it would have been easy for you to probably say respond after 3 or 4 days, right? I mean, it's completely normal. But to see the pace at which the strategy team responded, it was always in the next couple of hours. And I really loved that because that showed motivation from the strategy team's end, especially from your end, to help me with my endeavor, which you did not have to do so, right? I mean, so I was very thrilled by that. And we started off with the ESR analysis, and that was something which also excited me because I was expecting a generic response in terms of, hey, so your CR isn't great. Why don't you focus on that? Do these modules, and then we will go forward. But it was not that, right? I clearly remember you went through a detailed analysis of what that ESR was, gave me a customized 6-minute video on it. And that's when I bought into this entire experience in terms of, okay, so here's someone else who's going to help me out. And what I think was lacking prior to emailing the e-GMAT team was I was all alone in this battle. At least it seemed like it because I was the king to my destiny. I would do whatever I wanted to. I can convince myself that, hey, I don't want to do quant today because I'm tired and no one is going to question me, right?
Yeah.
But once I got in touch with you and you told me how to go about with it, I knew I had to stay on course because if I do not reply to you in a week or two, then again, in my mind, I'm like, okay, you're probably going down on the trust factor, which you don't want to.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And yeah, so to talk to you about the journey from there on, the first thing that we did was we focused on verbal because you said that my SC is good and my RC is perhaps where it needs to be. But CR was at a 31 percentile, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And that was something that we had to work on. So you gave me a plan in terms of how to complete the modules and what is the process that needs to be undertaken after that, right? With respect to semantic quizzes, what should be the target for the medium and hard quizzes, creating the error logs, revising them, and then moving forward to RC. So in that sense, I think there was an approach to this entire quest. I think there was a method to this madness of doing well in SC, CR, and RC, right? So that's what happened. And once we finished this for CR and RC, we took a mock, and that's when I scored a dismal 510. Yeah, so I think verbal was also not where it was supposed to be. It was around a V30 or V33. Quant was low, and we started off with quant, and you told me to go through that entire the modules for each of the topics, and then go through the process of giving the cementing quizzes, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's certainly not a linear journey, but it's been one which is worth going through.
So I think there's a few things that worth mentioning here. I think the first one is that you struggled a lot with CR. In fact, we have a good, I think, about 20 to 30 emails just talking about CR. and the different components of CR and so on and so forth. And RC was like even worse. Like I did not expect RC to be that bad, but then there are things that you don't expect to go wrong, right? And that happened in your case as well because your ESR did not show that. And I think kudos to you on following all the advice and being patient enough to understand that this had to be done. A lot of students kind of give up midway and say, listen, I'm going to skip this, carrying on with what I'm doing, and thank you so much. I think for me, that is the biggest win in this entire engagement because you kind of trusted what I was saying. And trust me, when I say this, I know what I'm doing. And I know exactly why people say something like, listen, I was stuck between the last two answer choices in CR. Or say something like, I read the paragraph, but I didn't know how to answer the question. Now I know exactly what the thing is there. It's genuinely like, so I think kudos to you on working on those aspects. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that you did everything right. You still scored a V31, and this is after you did everything right. But before that, let's talk about the course in itself, the SCCR and RC course, and what are the things that you took away from them that you did not see with the course you took before, joining e-GMAT.
Right. So let me talk about verbal, right? And this is where I would say that approach becomes very important when it comes to verbal. I did not have an approach before e-GMAT. And what do I mean by that? And I'm choosing my words very carefully over here, right? For instance, it's easy for us to come with a preconceived notion or a bias that, hey, this is English, and this is what I need to do in SC, which is to eliminate 4 options and choose the right answer, right? You can do so for CR and for RC. The truth is it works, but it works only until a certain point. After a certain point, the difficulty increases. And once your difficulty increases, you need to rely on something. And if your bias is not going to help you, then you need to stick to something, right? And that's where the approach becomes so very important. And for me, I thought it was a game changer. Why do I say so? Because SC previously, I would just see where the errors are and eliminate options. I would never focus on a meaning-based approach. And trust me when I say this, I have watched so many e-GMAT videos and people talking about meaning-based approach, and I would scoff at them, thinking, "Hey, no, this is not true. This can't be true."
Yeah.
Right? But perhaps it's one of those things where you need to bite the bullet and then realize for yourself. So that happened to me when I faced hard questions. I knew I was wrong, but when I used the meaning-based approach, it was easier for me to eliminate. Sometimes I just did not have to look at grammar because the meaning itself was wrong, right? So why do I need to bother about whether not only X, but also why X and Y are parallel? I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
The grammatical construction did not matter to me. So that was with respect to SC. With respect to CR, I think I would read and nothing would register in my mind. And I would just go with what I thought was the most plausible answer choice of the 5 that were there, right? But the approach helped me. What was the approach? That is to understand what the argument meant. That would probably take me 30 to 40 seconds, but to stick with it and then try to pre-think what the answer choices may be. It's not 100% that you can pre-think the answers always, but you will get some clarity in terms of the direction in which the answer choice may be in. So that was something which really helped me, because if there was, let's say, a logic, like complete the fill in the blanks question, and right before the blank, let's say that we use a keyword such as since or because, I knew why that keyword was used and what I had to do justice to that particular keyword and get the right answer. So that was what helped me the most. And with respect to RC, I think uh, I would say that I'm good when it comes to reading.
Yeah.
But I trip when it comes to challenging answer choices. So I was conscious enough. So if it was a detailed question, which I always got to know through the phrasing of the question prompt, right? Like according to the passage,
Yeah.
so on and so forth, I knew I had to spot the detail in the passage. There was no way in which I'm going to rely on my memory,
Instinct,
especially for a passage which I read fast and in just like say 3.5 to 4.5 minutes. So in that way, the approach really helped. Just one more point that I would like to add over here. The biggest game changer for me as silly as it may sound, was the master comprehension module. Man, I don't know how to stress on this. Perhaps the biggest learning is do the master comprehension the right way, because it solves a lot of your problems. Because towards the end, I remember telling you that, hey, DJ, I'm solving these questions, but nothing is registering in my mind. How do I go about with it? And you suggested go through the module, apply the process,
And you'd
pause.
gone through it, and you probably would have wondered, dude, this guy's crazy. Why is he telling me to do the same thing again? And I must tell you, like, not a lot of people realize that that small little module or that small little course sets precedent for the entire verbal course. And if you really understand what we're trying to say there and do it, you have it easy. Just not, you don't even in fact have to do or work very hard in SC then, because it's made easy. Very good point though. And I think the two biggest points or takeaways from me from what you've said is that, one, it's not enough to just buy a course like ours. It's important to invest the time to understand the approach that we're trying to teach you and then do it. Understanding it is one thing and doing it is another. So I have a lot of people or a lot of students who come and say, listen, I, and this is for SC questions, I eliminated these two options and I came to this. I said, hang on 1 second. You eliminated why? Like sentence structure, please. What was this? Because frankly, if I look at sentence structure, I can determine the answer from the sentence structure itself or just the meaning. And people don't realize that. They just jump into the options. And same thing for CR. You spend longer on the premise and the conclusion and visualize it. And we keep saying visualization and stuff like that. It's basically just understanding everything that's written there in your own words. Not everybody does it, and that's kind of where they falter. But yeah, so we carried on fixing our wobble, and of course that was a massive woe, and you kept working on it with the revision plan that I had shared, I remember. And you kept working on it, and meanwhile you started doing the Quant 2.0 course as well. So two things that I would want to talk to you about. One is, of course, the Quant 2.0 course. You've done some other course, you've done ours, so of course you can give valuable inputs here. And the second thing here is, it's an exhaustive course, and then I think at that point in time we launched Call 2.0 as well. And in fact we took your inputs as well on what are the things we can improve, what are the things that are good. So talk about both.
Sure. So let's touch upon Quant first, right? When I took the mock, so okay, just to give a context, I think e-GMAT has these free sessions which happen on Saturdays, and I would be diligent enough to attend all of those sessions, right? Sometimes even twice for say SC and CR, because I would think that okay, something new is going to happen. So that's how I got to know about e-GMAT course and Quant in specific, because I took that quiz that you have, right, as a part of your free session. Now, with respect to Quant, right, what I really liked the most was Quant had a structure to it. And again, I use the word structure with an intention. And the intention behind using that particular word is that there is a flow towards how you go from point A to point B, right, which I think is very important. What I lacked in my previous preparation when it came to Quant is I knew I was good at Quant, and I went through the modules, but there were times when I would look at questions and think, wait, I did not learn this. How do I apply this right now? And that was the biggest difference in the e-GMAT platform, because in every module, right, let's take a small example. For instance, let's take word problems, and let's get into, say, simple interest and compound interest. It starts off with the basics of what simple interest is. And you solve a couple of questions to get yourself acclimatized to what it is. And then you move forward to the difficult problems in simple interest, and then so on and so forth for compound interest. There's a very specific reason why I choose simple and compound interest, because when I was doing the module, I was certain that if there's one place where I'm going to ace it, it is at simple interest and compound interest. But guess what? That turned out to be my nemesis. It turned out to be my nemesis because I did not know what the formula which we generally used for compound interest, which is, let's say, p into 1 plus r by n into 100 to the power nt, whatever that formula is. I assume that that is for calculating the interest, but that's not true. It's for calculating the total amount, right? Now, conceptually, I knew I was lacking somewhere, and e-GMAT was good enough to point out where I was lacking conceptually. So in that sense, I think I got a structure to how I approached quant. So by the end of it, even when I say got to questions that I hadn't seen before, I knew I could solve it because my basics were strong and my foundations were there. And I could leverage my foundations to solve any problem that I wanted to. That's one part. And this is the conceptual ability. The second part to it is the process that you apply towards solving questions, right? Which becomes important. And e-GMAT focuses on these process skills, be it translation of the question, visualization, the different cases that you consider, so on and so forth. So much that by the end of the course, I was conscious enough to apply each of these things to questions, right? Sometimes I wasn't faltering because conceptually I was weak. I was faltering because I did not apply certain process skills, right? For instance, let's say that there's a question which says, x is an integer, find the value of x. It's easy to compute for x and say x is equal to 5.5 if that's your answer. But hey, x is an integer, which you conveniently missed in the question prompt. So those kind of things become very, I think those are small things, but go on to make a big difference when you're solving hard questions. So in that sense, the process skills combined with conceptual ability gave me a structure, and that helped me. To touch upon SCOL 2.0, I think when I first started off, I had only SCOL 1.0, if that was your previous version, right? So I could see the difference in terms of what 1.0 was and what 2.0 is. And the simple difference is that 2.0 has a lot of data analytics, which helps you see real time in terms of what is it that you're doing well, what is it that you're not doing well. And it's not only in terms of accuracy, but also the time taken by you as compared to, say, other individuals who have taken, say, cumulative time or the average time to solve that particular question. Now, why does that become important? For instance, I would always text you or email you in terms of, hey, so this is what has happened. Can you tell me what to do next? And you would give me suggestions in terms of, okay, so do this, do that, focus on these questions, create your error log. The easy thing about the SCOL 2.0 is that it already tells you what to do. So it reduces the time in terms of, I don't need to wait for your response. Instead, I can just look at it and see what questions to focus on, depending on whether I got them right or wrong, or did I get them right after spending excess time, so on and so forth. So I thought that was the biggest game changer for me when it came to SCOL 2.0 as well.
Well, I think very valuable points. I have nothing to add here, which is very rare, by the way. I think, again, very, very valuable inputs. And the funny thing, and here's what I kind of wanted to point out to everybody here, was you were actually a verbal online subscriber. You kind of upgraded to Quant 2.0 and then the mocks as well later, which is very cool, which I found very cool. And I think you understood the value that the course kind of brought along as well. And of course, I just asked you that, why don't you go ahead and do it? And that decision was yours. But I'm pretty sure that you realize now that there's a ton of value in the entire course as a whole. Okay, so all that said and done, we got to the point where you did quant well, you did quant readiness well, and you took a mock and you scored from 510 to 690, like in that space of time. So, and of course, you wrote to me and you told me, and I was like, yes, finally, we're there. What happened after that? And take me through right from that point to your exam.
Right. So yes, I gave my mock. I wasn't very sure how it would go. The reason was that when it came to, say, the cementing quizzes and stuff, right, I found them to be hard. So I did not know whether I was going to lose motivation when I give my, say, the mock exam, and I scored a 690, and I was fairly comfortable with it, right? Simply because I thought it mimicked the actual GMAT in a certain way in terms of how the questions are categorized as let's say medium, hard, and then hard. There is a bifurcation even in terms of, is it medium, hard, or hard, right? Which is rare. Usually it's either medium or hard.
Yeah.
Now, once I scored a 690, I was pleasantly surprised because I wasn't expecting that. And then I wrote to you and I asked you, okay, so hey, so this is what I scored. So how do we go from here? And the process after that was we saw what is it that wasn't working well, right? You had gone through my performance and you suggested that I need to be focusing on geometry and algebra when it came to quant, and when it came to verbal, I need to start focusing on, I think it was RC if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
that we had to do. So then we had a call where you gave me more inputs in terms of what exactly I need to be doing for the next few days. What is it that I need to focus on, right? For RC, you said, I want you to go through your error log, and there was a particular approach that you'd suggested to see if that works out for me. Try it out for 8 passages, and after that, let's see how it goes. So I did that. And for geometry, I went through my error log. I kept going through the problems and seeing some patterns. And what do I mean by patterns? Usually, let's take, for example, there's a question on triangle inequality, and it says, what can be the perimeter, right? I got to know that whenever there's a question which says, what can be the perimeter, it has to do with the triangle inequality theorem. So I mapped certain things that way so that I don't get caught off guard. And then I started to draw the diagrams also on my scratch pad, something which you suggested, which I wasn't doing previously. So yeah, these small points played a big role in changing things in the way I approach those questions.
And let me remind everybody at this point that you'd put in all the effort, all the hard work was there. Just those teeny little tweaks had to be done. And of course, I kind of wanted to explain why I'm saying, because some of the advice was little, it may have sounded redundant to you. So I had to explain it as to why I want you to do precisely what I want you to do. And I think the diligence came from your end, when which I gave you the plan. It was absolutely comprehensive. You followed it to a T. You gave an official mock, did well on it. And I remember that I think I missed your second to last email where you had mentioned that I've taken the official mock. What am I supposed to do? This was about 2 days before the test. And then I responded the day after. I think that email and the things I told you there are, I would say, a compilation of where I know people go wrong. I exactly know. And I think that for me was very important to do. I do it for only my diligent students as well. And I think that would have helped in some way or another, if not, in any other way. But overall, through this entire experience, I want to understand from you.
Just to add on, I'm sorry to cut you.
Yeah.
The last email that you sent, right? It was perhaps a game changer because I still remember those points at the back of my head right now. And which is that when it comes to CR, you need to ensure you apply the process skill. And for SC, do it for the first 3 questions that you see. And the reason, because once you do it for the first 3 questions, then you know that you have to do for the next, right? It becomes an unconscious thing in your mind. And it's important because I would lose out because I would look at the time and be like, hey, you know what? Screw the process. Let me let me stick to what I know the best, so-called best. So yeah, just to add that point, I'm sorry to cut you. Yeah.
No, I didn't want to say it, but of course, because that's very valuable advice. I think, again, it only comes right from the bottom of my heart, and it was very specific to you as well, because I know that you know the process, and at times you kind of deviate from it, and it was very specific to you. But all in all, I'm supremely happy that you scored a 730. Of course, we will be working together to kind of improve on this as well. And of course, post this, we'll talk about your ESR and of course, create a plan for your future as well. But again, I just want to say that it's terrific to have you reach a 730. I'm very proud of you. And I think you can really get to that 750 level, as 760 level that you want to go to as well.
Thank you so much. That means a lot, DJ. And I'm pretty sure that we can do that. I think history speaks for itself. So yeah, looking forward to that journey as well.
I look forward to. In fact, when that happens, we'll of course do another interview then, and that should be like part two to this. Thank you so much again, and all the best for your next bit of journey.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.